War and life, the night had fallen, and the sound of the wind howling through the cracks in the window filled the air. The house, located in a half-built, abandoned neighborhood far from the city, stood like a tiny speck in the vast white expanse of snow and cold. In the middle of the room, a small kerosene heater flickered weakly, struggling to push back the biting chill from the damp, colorless walls. Seema, a young woman whose face still bore traces of youth despite her weariness, sat in the dim room, watching her children. Her 3 small children huddled around the heater, trying to warm their tiny hands against its faint heat. Their little stomachs grumbled with hunger, but they said nothing, perhaps knowing there was nothing to be said. Seema's eyes wandered to the corner of the wall, where a simple photo frame hung. In the photo, her husband, dressed in a soldier's uniform, smiled faintly. He was away at war, sending only the occasional simple note to let them know he was still alive. The situation wasn't much better anywhere else in the country. With a heavy sigh, Seema rose to her feet. She placed a hand over her stomach, the warmth of the heater a cruel reminder of the empty cupboards. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall where the children could see. One last piece of bread remained. She took it, placed it on the heater to warm slightly, and then divided it into 3 pieces for her children. The children ate hungrily. Her youngest son, in between bites, tried playfully to put a piece of bread in Seema's mouth, but she laughed, gently pushing it back into his hand. She watched them eat, her heart heavy with loneliness, her eyes brimming with silent tears. That night was the longest of Seema's life. Inside her, a storm of despair and hopelessness raged. Thoughts of the morning to come crushed her under their weight. With no food left to eat, how would they survive? How could she bear to see her children suffer the pangs of hunger? What could she possibly do, stranded here in the middle of nowhere? The more she thought, the more she became convinced that nothing would change. Miracles felt so far away. Her thoughts drifted to a small bottle of poison she had kept in the cupboard for mice. The thought seized her mind, but every time she looked at her children, her heart burned like fire. How could she even consider such a thing? How could she extinguish the light in their innocent eyes forever? Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She whispered to herself, "God, I can't do this. But what can I do? Help me." It was near dawn when the call to prayer from a distant mosque echoed in the freezing air. Seema, unable to sleep from her thoughts and sorrow, got up to gather the damp rags she'd left in the yard. The air outside was colder than ever, and a fierce wind howled around her. She wrapped her old shawl tightly around herself and stepped out into the yard, her tears not yet dried on her cheeks. Under her breath, she murmured, "God, help me. I'm begging you. I'm lost, and I don't know what to do." Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew through. Something fluttered in the air and landed at her feet. Seema bent down to pick it up. At first, she thought it was just a piece of paper, but as she looked closer, she realized it was a banknote, the most valuable bill of its time. Her eyes widened in shock, her hands trembling as she held it. Tears streamed down her face again, but this time they were tears of joy. She felt with all her heart that her prayers had been heard. It was as if God had reached out and taken her hand. She rushed back into the house. The children were still asleep. Seema stared at the banknote and smiled through her tears. "We'll survive," she whispered. As dawn broke, Seema woke her children, dressed them in warm clothes, and took them to the market. For the first time in what felt like forever, her children's tiny hands were filled with warm bread and fresh fruit.